grab my gear, load the truck. Heading out, don't give a truck. Rifles locked, boots tied tight. Gonna catch that deer all through the night. Hunting in the highland hill, chasing dreams and catching thrills. The wind is howling, the game is near. In the woods, our favorite place, my dear. Hunting in the highland hill.
Good afternoon, this is Davey T from Field Sports Scotland, and welcome to another episode of FSS Chat Back, where we talk about outdoor stuff as well as hunting, shooting, and anything related. Today is a very, very special episode. We are going to be talking to Matthew Reinhardt from DNT in the US and Pete Dodsworth over video chat. So bear in mind, I'm new to that technology, trying to get it all set up, and my internet connection is absolutely rubbish. I have done a bit of research on why my mic was dropping out, and I've had a few issues with microphone, and it's probably down to my poor bandwidth in regards to my internet connection. However, the guys, Pete and Matthew, they had a very good mic and very clear, and it is still a very, very informative podcast. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hopefully you'll get some information from it. Enjoy. Hi guys, would you like to introduce yourselves on who you are, what you are, and just give us a bit of history about yourself? I'll mute my mic and shut up for 5 minutes.
Do you want to go first, Matthew?
Sure, I can go first. I'm Matthew Reinhardt. I'm one of the employees for DNT Optics in the US. Before this, I had a passion for air gunning. Even though I'm in the US, there are still users, and it's getting really big in the US now these days. I am not a fan of day scopes as much. Glass scopes, they're great, but for some reason my eyes just can't adjust well to the reticle. And I actually geared more towards the digital stuff. I like being able to record my shoots and testing stuff. And I've been doing the digital stuff, and I've tested over a dozen digital scopes from different companies. And I helped out when it was Arken, running a bunch of the Facebook groups and helping users with some errors that they were having. And I just did that on my own time. And I guess that stood out enough to the DNT team to be able to bring me on as a kind of like a device specialist, and just use my knowledge base here in the US to help touch the air gun guys that we have in the US. And that's pretty much where we're at.
Nice one. I'm Pete Dodsworth. Some of you will recognise me. I run Night Vision UK group or business. Been in industry now for over a decade. Past interests go well back beyond that. I'm only a sub-12 air rifle shooter. If I want anything else, then I go out with friends. So I don't have a FAC ticket at all. Makes life easier for me. Night vision wise, in the UK, it goes back to when we used to cobble bits of screens together, CCD sensor cameras, fasten them all together with bits of elastic band and rubber tubing, stick them on the back end of a day scope with an adapted torch from the old 501Bs, I think they were, that we used to mess around with. And then that transition to what we've got now, technology-wise. So I've seen a lot of changes, that's for sure, from like the cascade image intensifier tubes that people were making, the Starlight Archers that were tube stuff, seeing the Photon XTs and things like that. Some of you remember Vlad from, is it Russian Bazaar, Dave, that used to bring out like pre-pulsars and things, the photons. So yeah,
Thermtech. I think it was Thermtech down in Glasgow, if I remember correctly. When the photons and that used to come out, that's where the main factory in the UK was, and Vlad worked out of there, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right. Yeah. I can remember once seeing him at one of the shooting shows quite some time since, and he came over at one of the shows. And at the time, I'd just made a near-eye unit, sort of before the PARD units came out. And he came over and he pointed out with his finger at this unit in a very, very strong accent. He said, "You are my competitor." And I thought, well, I'm not really, but I'll accept that one. So yeah, the Arken side of stuff. I've exhibited at most of the UK shows, British Shooting Show, been up to Scotland, had dealings with SAC side of things, so I've been involved up there. Got involved with the Arken things here, messaging to and from, got asked to look at reviewing things. I've had a lot of my stuff in the magazines, had a few bits on TV, on Gadget Show and things over the years. And I'm pretty straightforward with regards to review. If something's good, I'll tell you. But if there are issues, I'll also tell you. Because the last thing I would want is somebody that's going to be a potential customer of mine, me basically selling you something that I know I'm going to get issues 2 and 3 months down the line. So I like to keep people as well informed as much as I would want to be. When Arken team came over, Bin Song, Ryan Lee, Solange, and a few more, I'd suggested that a guy called Andrew Dickinson, who's tactical designs on my thing on here, and we sort of helped run the DNT Optics UK social media side of things. It's his own group, but Bin's sort of watched in the background, one of the main guys from Arken DNT. Ryan I'm in constant touch with. Messaged him this morning when I jumped into bed at crazy times. And managed to meet up with them after the British Shooting Show, and they came up into Lincolnshire and bought the pre-retail unit, the TNC unit there. So that was the first chance that we got, not to just see the unit, but use it in the field and meet up with the team, and kept good relationships ever since. So that's been great. So that's a bit about myself.
My kind of history with Arken is obviously I came on board as a reviewer for them. I tend not to make shows because I stay like go to shooting shows and stuff like that. I do try, but I was in Tennessee when the shooting show was happening, and my products were just arriving here when the shooting show started. But I'm going to be honest, my history with Arken DNT or DNT was a little bit later than everybody else's because I was away, I was working in my winter work. Plus, as I mentioned in all of our introductions before the show, I was pretty much didn't start all my reviewing stuff back up until January, February. So a lot of guys who follow my channel will know the reason why and stuff like that. So we'll need to get into that. But I was just getting back into doing the reviews properly. I still had companies before over the last couple of years phoning me up saying, "Look, can you have a look at this? Tell me what you think. What's this turret doing? What's that turret doing?" But unlike you guys, I'm an airgun shooter. I'm most predominantly a deer stalker by trade, and I do pest control. So the smallest thing genuinely on a daily basis that I shoot is rabbits with the 2.2 rimfire or with the 17 HMR. So all of mine are powder-related rifles, except from my little 2.2 air rifle, my HW97. As many people have seen the footage of me dropping pigeons in sheds and leaving them a drop, I am nowhere near shooting the hundreds of thousands of rats and pigeons like guys are doing elsewhere, or guys and girls are doing elsewhere. In regards to Arken and DNT, what do you guys think about the transition? Because a lot of people I was speaking to Matt about this, Matthew, hopefully, Matt, can I tell you Matthew or no? What do you prefer? Sorry, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Yeah. Matt's fine. Matthew's just professional, and
Matt's
that's
fine.
just what
It's
people
just
see
easier for
me
me
as.
to remember because it's just easy for me to remember. So I was speaking to Matt before we came on live. Was that the dynamics of Arken and how it moved to DNT? Nobody really knows. They've got this impression that DNT did this hostile takeover of Arken, and that they bought Arken completely over and no longer Arken exists, which is not really true. It's more of a I'm struggling with the dynamics myself, but it's more of a split of teams in regards to visions of which direction each wants to go. I think Arken want to go ahead with their day optics, and DNT want to specialise in their digital night vision and day vision optics, which is obviously it requires two different expertise. What's your guys' thoughts on this?
I personally think it's a great transition. Having, as I say, met and spoken to the guys such as Ben, Solange, a few others, and Ryan, and they sort of gave me as much insight as that they could really, without letting the cat out the bag and talking too much politics and everything else and internal business. I just saw it as being a very positive thing. I didn't see it as being negative. Ryan had asked me, what do you think? Because we've suddenly become very popular. You know, we're sort of starting to become market leaders with regards to the Zulus. What do you think the customer reception will be that we're going to be changing to DNT Optics? And it's a little bit of an analogy of as today's news is tomorrow's chip paper, for want of a better description. I don't know whether you've heard that one before, Matthew. And I think the transition's been great. I think people have got on board very quickly with regards to the name change. I think the initial confusion about, what's happened? Why have they sold out? Well, they've not sold out, but that was maybe a misconcept in a way. Are we going to get support and everything else? I just see the more defined separation between the day optics and the day-night stuff has been a real good one. And I think it's a real good positive step forward.
Matthew?
Yeah, so we just want guys to know that guys and gals, that it wasn't a takeover at all. It's still the same engineering team. It's just that the Zulus did so well that there was just such a huge influx that customer service, at least in the US, was kind of not lacking, but it wasn't. We were getting hit so hard that they couldn't keep up with customer service. And at the time, I wasn't part of customer service. So there was times that you could send an email and it would be 2 or 3 weeks before you got an answer. And they were just so flooded with questions that it would affect how the user would see the product, because they couldn't get a simple question that they had answered quickly, because some guys just want to know, hey, what battery does it use? What torch does it use? Does it have a rangefinder? And here, at least here in the US, you couldn't get those answers quickly. So it's just, you had brand recognition. People know Arken, and we're hoping that people will follow the product and not the name. And then it'll just be a smooth transition for everybody. And our goal, at least here in the US, and I know in the UK, it's always been great, but we have a phone number that you can contact here in the US. We have a lot of team members here that answer questions, and I try to touch base on the US forums and the Facebook groups to try to have a presence to be able to help anybody whenever they need it.
You're doing a great job from this side, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. We obviously conversed this week over a problem with one of the users over here, which was quite. I'm sure Steve's listening just now, but was quite a kind of awkward kind of problem that none of us had come across before. And but I have come across another makes of digital night visions that use internal rangefinders and ballistic calculations and stuff like that. But it's always good to have a second and third opinion on what's going on. It's always good for users out there to know that there's more than one person that they can touch base with, to find out if there's going to be a problem and who they can speak to. And a lot of folk come to me directly because obviously I'm completely independent of everything. So they go, well, I've been told to do this. What's your thoughts on it? And I'm going, yeah, do it. That's what I would do. I run through the steps that I would personally do before I would send a product back to the manufacturer and say, David, before I say, look, this isn't working. This is not how it should be working. You really need to fix this. And this is the same, like I've had extensive conversations. I mean, like 14, 15-hour conversations with DNT through WhatsApp at 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, right through. In fact, it's got to the point that Ryan and I are practically best buddies. We're talking almost on a daily basis. It's crazy. So the other week before there, we were talking about, he was actually in the lab with the new 3 to 12 because he's sending out the more products. And he said, look, there's a problem. Oh, wait a minute. Well, let's go and I'm going to go and speak to the lab guys right now and we'll find out what the problem is. And they took it to the lab and they tested it. I think it was a zeroing issue or a problem. That was upgrade the firmware for the new app, which we'll come to in a little bit. But yeah, it's great to have this multiple tier level customer service that between all of us that's involved, there's plenty of people to talk to.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the big things with regards, I mean, I'd like yourself, David, and maybe yourself, Matthew, I'll say a decade that I've been involved in this sort of thing, roughly. It is a little bit longer than that, but I've come across a lot of businesses. Some have gone by the way, such as Night Sight Dave, that you'll remember, and a variety of other things. The thing that is really, really refreshing about the team at DNT is their enthusiasm, their commitment, their ethos, their ethics about it all. That they don't want to be just throwing a product onto the market and then we're the test base for it. Your customer's the test base. They don't want to do that, which is why we've seen the delays with so many things. That my personal experiences as a user, as a customer, and then as a retailer, that the instantaneous ability to get in touch with the team, any little question, it's not a problem for them whatsoever. And as Ryan sort of said to me before, Ryan Lee, if you don't know the answer and the people that you're talking to and in your groups with the experience that you've got don't know, just ask. That they've got all the expertise, they've got the labs, they've got everything there available. It may be an issue that they've not seen themselves, and some of them have been unique, but their approach with things, and I say, having personally met the team and spoken to them on a very personal basis, they're refreshing. I haven't met a company like them with regards how they want to become in the marketplace. They really, truly are refreshing.
Customer services, well, actually, at the moment, it seems to be fantastic. For especially my own personal experience, it's kind of refreshing in a way because, as you mentioned, Night Sight were very hard to deal with. I did a huge review for them with their Night Sight Wolf, and their distribution side of things was unbelievably bad to the point that they were losing stuff in the in post and stuff like that. When Lights and Night Sight, we can talk about them because they no longer exist, but Lights and Night Sight, their teething problems were more than just teething problems. They weren't even getting teeth through when they started launching products and selling products. And I've got to admit, the products were not that much different from the likes of the home builds that you and I were building at the time, Pete. They were a little bit more refined, a little bit more manufactured, but at least DNT and Arken have come to market with an unbelievable product from the get-go. It's the software side of things and the switchover side of things and where we're finding the issues and the user experience. And that ties in ideally for the next subject is user expectations of the products. I've found that where we've had a bit of a problem, and we've discussed this as well, is that some of the people who are distributing the items, the products or the units, are not that clued up on the unit themselves that they're giving bad advice in regards to sales on what product they should be purchasing, what comes with the product. And in all fairness, a lot of these shops don't actually do anything out with the shop. They just buy a product, look at the specification, sell it as a specification item, and they don't really have on-the-ground experience with it. I think they're giving bad advice. Are you finding the same in the States in regards to distributors of the products?
So it's a hard subject only because it's not really that guys are just selling the product, they don't know about it. It's just more of the dealers get the product, and because it was going so fast, I don't think anybody had the time behind it to even say what it was. they would get the product and just get it out to customers without standing behind it or using it. And that's why part of my team here, I'm the device specialist, and we have every single one of our customer service agents here in the US has a unit. And half the time, if you guys have a question, I will take one of my units and I'll do it with you guys. I was on the phone the other day for 45 minutes trying to work out an issue with the guy. And that's mainly what it is. It's user error sometimes. And like you said, it could be software, and we're just trying to decide. It's hard doing stuff via chat. Phone calls are much easier, in my opinion. But when that doesn't work, you need to get all the data and what issues that they're having. So social awareness, just to get all these groups in check and try to help each other as fast as we can without being hostile to anybody, and just answer as much as we can and solve these issues without anybody like getting mad at each other, because that's not what this is about. It's about a good product that we want everybody to use. And your phone doesn't work properly all the time, and that's how you need to look at it. It's a very high technology piece of item that can't always work properly. And I just want everybody to know that there are going to be hiccups and bugs, and none of them are ever intentional, because no matter how much we test products on a mass production range with millions of users, thousands of users, you can't account for every single issue that can happen, even though we test as much as we can.
Yeah.
Nate, what's your thoughts?
I think everything you said is extremely valid. I know here in the UK, for me personally, I'm maybe a lot smaller retailer than maybe a lot of the guys. I'll mention a couple of colleagues of mine, Dave Bamlett at Dab Shooting. He's a fantastic shooter, but he's got a local gun shop, which is great. Ian Blackwood's at Blackwood Outdoors. I'm nowhere near in that sort of level. Mine's a very personal connection with my customer base, so it's not just an online sale that's a faceless sale. People get in touch with me on a daily basis. They'll message you, you'll chat, etc., etc. The one thing I have seen with originally the Arken and the DNT is within the UK, and I'm not sure whether you get it in America, but Dave will have seen this here. You get not just brand loyalty, but you also get a lot of brand hatred and backstabbing amongst certainly night vision and other things as well. It's like fishing over here, similar sort of things with that. But I've not yet seen that with DNT. I've not really seen the product bashing. I've seen a few people that have had other things that have said, well, it's sort of the new kid on the block, but I've certainly not seen much product bashing and nastiness like I have done with other brands. I mean, it's like Pulsar have been so popular for years, and they're getting battering just recently. Infrared sort of things, they've been very popular, and they're getting knocked. Seems like the Higgs sort of stuff now, David's maybe very, very popular side of things, the Thermtech stuff. Not the Thermtech, can't remember what the other brand is now, but the Arken one's unique for me, because I've not seen this where a product's come out and you've not got any nastiness about it. It seems to be well taken on board. People that have got them, people that are trying to assist, and because of how the company themselves try and get involved, that's another unique thing. It's a positivity of owning. There doesn't seem to be any nastiness from other organisations or people about it. And I think that's another great thing.
I would agree with that a lot, because as you mentioned, we've went through torch wars, we've went through night vision wars when everybody was trying to brand their own homemade night vision devices. We've went through torch wars. It was hilarious. Matthew, you would never give me, it was horrendous. It was just genuinely horrendous.
That's 10 more podcasts on a separate basis, that.
The night vision market has went through this massive transition of loves and hates in regards to different products in the UK, and I know the reason for it is because it became affordable. It became affordable to the non-commercial professional shooter. Even as a professional shooter, I've been a professional shooter most of my life. The price of these products were unobtainable. And with the Zulus coming out, for instance, The 520, when it first came out, I'd never seen an IR like it that was built in. You bear in mind, even the top of the range ones that we were paying 1,500 to £2,000 for 10, 15 years ago, their maximum range of a built-in IR was around about 100 meters, if that. In fact, that's why I got really distressed over the fact that when Arken brought out the 3 to 12, they predominantly sold it with the LED,
LED.
which
Yeah.
I've sent one back actually to you, Keith. Then, then the LED fell. Oh, hopefully this fell out again. I sat there and I have my phone. It does, it does show you that we've come a long way. I think the reason why there hasn't been any um, arguments over it is because they're trying not to compete with anybody. They're not putting themselves in the position of saying, look, we're attacking Pulsar or we're attacking Pard or every various other. They're basically just adding another option to the market, and it's an affordable option as well. And I think this is where it's going to win, is because the price of the DNT Optics is far less than its competitors, and they're offering a lot more. As you know, Pete, I did a review on the new HIC Micro 4K. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal scope. But in regards to weight and various other things, attributes to it, it's nothing compared to the Zulus. So it's not trying to compete; it's competing in a way that it's not threatening in anybody. You know, it's people are saying, well, that's that scope, that's ideal for this. The Zulus is ideal for that. Let's just not worry about them and see how far they go. You know, and DNT are doing the exact same. Do you see anything like this in the States in regards to this kind of competition? Because I know you've got AGM that are right out there right now, especially they'll be in major competition or feel they're in major competition with the new TNC that's coming out or came out. I see the Rattler, the AGM Rattler is getting really good reviews right now. The Infrared is doing well in the US as well. Again, another brand that is similar to DNT in many ways, but the price point is still a long way higher. Pick, you've only just hit the States, but they've got like political issues right now, but they're still doing very well. But you've also got quite a saturated night vision market in the States right now, especially with your Texas hog shooters and things like that. So I'm wondering if you're seeing similar things as what we see over here.
So the main thing with us here in the US and DNT and this whole transition is that we never want to attack any other company. I'm never going to tell you to buy our product over something else because the customer is who we want to hit. If you see our product and you like our product, I'll tell you what our product could do, but we're not here to bash anybody else in the market. Just show customers what's available to purchase for what we're offering. Yeah, I mean, with the new thermal unit, it might hit some guys, not personally or some companies, but it's definitely going to put a mark on the US market as another great option as a thermal to be able to get into night hunting. The main thing with the TNC is that you're going to be able to get into a thermal for the price that you'd be able to get just a thermal, while this is going to have the IR light, the digital laser rangefinder and stuff, and not be limited to just the thermal. And the point behind that is that I don't know how it is in the UK or what, but we have a lot of different terrains here in the US, and IR and digital imaging isn't always the best, and neither is thermal. We do a lot of hunting in fields where there's next to farms and stuff, and you want to be able to ID. And when you're running just thermal, that makes it really hard because you could have a 256 or you could have a 640, and at distance, whether it's weather or not, you could tell that it's a canine or a dog, but you have to wait for body language to determine. And that's something that all thermal users know. With this product, because you have both units in one, if you're not sure with the thermal, you look at it with your digital. It's not, I never want to say it's 100%, but it ups your chances a lot faster being able to see it. And the great thing about this is that you can actually use both images at once. So you're not limited to just one screen. You run both images, and you can use thermal in the main image and the picture-in-picture with your digital. And the option to move the picture-in-picture, it's user-friendly, and we're just trying to make sure that the user has the best experience with these products. And that's what we want, is that I want to be on these groups and these Facebook groups and all these forums and hear from you guys to be able to give this information to the company so we can make it better for the user.
Well, one thing to what you've just said, and that this might be something that David will think of in future. One of the things that I think of with the TNC, having both your thermal and your infrared and your day, it's going to be a phenomenal teaching aid. So where in the past you've either had a night vision or a day scope, and you've had maybe a thermal monocular, and it's, as you've just been saying, identifying, watching body language. Now you've got the beauty of having your day scope, but you can have the thermal. You can see what that animal represents like in thermal on the same screen as you're seeing it in daylight conditions. And then nighttime wise, you've got exactly the same thing again. So I see this as being also a fabulous teaching aid in some organisations and maybe some syndicates and things like that, where they can say, look, okay, we're going to have a session on this. This is the unit that we're going to use. And you'll be able to learn and identify that this is what it looks like under an ordinary daylight, and this is how it's represented in the thermal. So I see it as being a great training aid.
No, Pete, I don't know if you've picked up on any of my previous back when we go a couple of years back when I was doing my original stuff on that, I was not a big advocate of thermal rifle scopes. I've tested them all. I've tested all the big brands. I have been sent products from that didn't even come out in the market, from companies that basically announced at SHOT Show and never ever materialized to anything. So when Arken appeared and now DNT, I was like, oh, this could be another one of those that are just going to disappear over the next couple of months. So, but I'll do what I do. I'll do the review. I'll enjoy playing with the product. I'll send the product back and we'll see how it goes, and we'll send a review. Now, I've worked with thermal for a very long time, even very rudimentary thermal. The first commercial big units that came out were like your Apexes a way back. Maybe we're going back now 10 years, and even before that, from Pulsar. And I've worked with some of the military grade ones as well. Fleur had some good ones at the very beginning, but they were very boxy, very poor in regards to quality. And this is where the big problem is. I have never ever advocated having a sole thermal scope. I've always worked a thermal monocular, I use a Helion right now, but hopefully in the future it'll be something else. And I would have a night vision scope with IR for clarity, for identification. Now, as people know, you won't know this as well. The 1st of November last year, the laws changed in Scotland to be allowed to use night vision scopes on deer. That was a big no-no for us. We weren't even allowed to use a digital scope for deer before the 1st of November last year. We had to use a clear scope with lamp. And for many years, I was running a lamp out the window of the truck, lamping deer and shooting through a normal day scope in the lamp. Now that's changed. It's a big game changer. Now opening up the digital night vision market to deer stalkers who now can shoot. Because before then, you weren't even allowed to use a digital scope during the day in Scotland. You could only for deer. You could use it for foxes, you could use it for rabbits, you could use it for any other unlicensable pest. But anything that was licensed, you had to use day scope. And that was very, very much a difficult thing for me to translate the beauty of digital night vision to deer stalkers and digital day vision to deer stalkers, because it was unmarketable in Scotland. However, like I said, I never advocated the use of thermal rifle scopes for anything, because even now, even with the 640 scopes and the higher end scopes that you're getting now out of with the likes of AGM are now got the highest resolution thermal scope in the market at the minute. Even Pulsar's top end 3, 4, 5, 10 grand thermal rifle scopes. We had what is called thermal bleed. So you could see a full deer. And I've seen this actually in the footage that you sent me, Matthew, in regard the other day there in regards to the TNC. You can see a full stag or a full buck in the trees. But when you knock it off to night vision or to day vision, you can't see that buck. So what's happening is the thermal bleed will go over the branches and things like that that are in front of it. So you're not getting a true picture of exactly what you're shooting at. Having the backup from your day scope for the digital day scope or the digital night vision, so that you can see what the cover is in front of the animal, is hugely important. Because me as a person who works in forestry, I do a lot of threading the needle, as we call it. I am shooting at deer that is in thick cover. I'm pretty much got a 1.5 to 2 inch target maximum to shoot at any one time. And if I was to rely on thermal for that and just thermal for that, I can guarantee you I will get branch strikes, I will get hard grass strikes, I will get all sorts. And I've done many reviews in the past where I've videoed using the thermal of a roe deer, and I've put it up on one of the forums and said, "What do you think this is?"
Yeah.
And depending on the forum, you'll get fox. Well, if it's red, it's dead. If it's this, and it misidentify what they're looking at because they just don't have the experience in it. Flick it over to night vision at the same moment. Put my night vision scope on it at the same moment with the IR. Clear as day, lying in the grass. There's a roe deer or a sheep or whatever, something that I'm not going to shoot. And that's where new technology from the likes of TNC, and as Hick Micro also brought out the Habrock as well. I did a quick review on the new Habrock binoculars. That's where the TNC is going to come into it. And where the biggest point, because this is not new technology, multispectral has been out for a couple of years. But where it's the key thing about this TNC model, and I haven't got hands on yet, so you guys are looking at than I am. The key thing is price. You cannot purchase a thermal rifle scope with laser rangefinder, with daytime digital viewing, and nighttime digital viewing, and IR, and ballistic calculator, and all the works all into it for less than £2,000 at the moment. With anything, there's no multispectral rifle scopes out there for less than £2,000. So for the TNC, DNT to come out with the TNC, that is a big, big game changer in regards to the price point and the price market.
Yeah. I mean, the price market that they've released it at, which they were trying to do originally, so that they've literally by a penny come in at the sub £1,000 mark. Phenomenal. I mean, I sell a unit that's a thermal camera that plugs into your mobile phone. So whether it's either iOS or Android, that are made by X Infrared, which is like a side company of Infrared, and they're roughly £370 to £400. So if you think that the Zulus here in the UK are roughly £600, and the closest thing that you can get to that would be another £400, but you've got all the combinations that you'd want, ballistic, calculate everything. It's how they've managed to get it into the marketplace at that price range is big pat on the back to those guys, definitely. Yeah.
100%. Right, let's talk about this big topic that's on at the moment. Arken apps, new DNT app, the problems we're facing, spent most of its user error. And even the users that we spoke to and fixed their problems for have said, I wish I'd known that. Is it down to the layout of the app? Is it down to just confusion between using two apps for Arken Optics and now going to one app? What's your thoughts, and what's the most common user mistakes that we are getting on a daily basis?
I think the transition from going from 2 apps to 1, I think that's a godsend. I think people that weren't tech savvy were frustrated by having to have 2 apps, and then they were confused with regards, do I need to have my phone with me all the time when I'm in the field or don't? There's so many things with the first one. But like anything else, they've got to have a starting point somewhere, haven't they? So the transition to having the unit now controlled by one app, I think that's great. Where it's combining everything into one app. You've got to put all your data into just one piece of technology, and I think that's a good transition forward. I've certainly seen issues with regards to people saying, well, I mean, like we've always said, make sure you write all your data down, make sure you've got everything that you need, check your X and Y coordinates for when you redo it, because it's going to reset your scope and everything else, as you would do with any technology. And then you still get people then saying, well, I've done all that, but I've put it in, but my zero's off. It's no good. Well, it doesn't matter what scope you use, what technology, you transition that data over, you've still got to check your zero. I've had that conversation so many times, and people say, well, I've done it. My scope was 0 before. I shouldn't have to do it again. Well, hang on a minute. Don't you check 0 with your first shot before you hit any live quarry? Yes, I do. Well, why not do it now? So there is some...
100% agree.
There's some...
100% agree. I was speaking to Ryan about this the other week. That's what I was talking about when we couldn't work it. I had swapped over the DNT app with a 3 to 12. No, sorry, with a 5 to 20, and I was thinking it was plus 94 was my elevation before I changed over the app, and then when I re-zeroed, I checked my zero again after putting all that information back in. I was actually minus 84. So there was a huge difference. I religiously check my scope. Sorry for interrupting you, Pete, but I just religiously check my zero, even if I change the tiniest thing.
Yeah. I think one of the other things that you see sometimes as well is people having an understanding of what maybe the abbreviations are. So the difference between like grams and grains, or whether they're putting in yards or meters, and I'll get quite confused with some of that. But I think, again, it's just purely going to be the more that people see it being used, the more feedback that they see from US and from UK and other places that use them, that the more that it'll get ironed out. And the more it will become such a more pleasant experience to use the unit and the app.
Matthew, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so whenever anything new is released, you're expected to have some bugs. We don't want them to have bugs, but it happens.
Yep.
There's thousands of different phones on the market, and you can't account for every single phone having the same thing. And this happened even with Arken. When the Arken app came out, there was guys that had perfect connection with the Bluetooth, and they could transfer their data over flawlessly. And then sometimes there was an Android user that couldn't, or vice versa. And I would be like, at times I'd be like, do you have access to another phone? Can we just determine if it's your device or if it's the app? And we work through all these bugs, and if they pop up and you guys see it, we want to try to solve it as fast as possible, because we don't want to leave anybody hanging. And that's our main concern, is that the bugs that you guys are seeing, they're not intentional, and we don't know about them until you guys tell us, basically, because we didn't experience that. And we have testers, and we have all different devices, and sometimes it just doesn't show up on our phones. Different phones give different permissions, and that's what you got to make sure that you focus on, and you can get them up and running. One of the things that is confusing right now, and I get it, is transferring the ballistic data, because for the longest time, yes, you could either have your phone paired, or you could send over one table at a time via Bluetooth. The confusing part is that right now on the DNT app, and I want guys to know, is that sync ballistic button on your main ballistic screen, that is only with Wi-Fi now, and that's to just get the in-scope ballistic data in faster. You could still put it in the scope, but there's guys that'll be still connected to Bluetooth, and they tap in that button, and they're like, it's not doing anything. It's not giving me any windows. It's because they're still hooked up to Bluetooth. Another comment, it's these little common things that it's going to be a little confusing with how it worked on the old system with the new system. And I don't think that everything is a bug. Sometimes it's user error. And that's why we want feedback and to talk back and forth as much as possible to see if it's device or to see if it's app or to see if it's just something was inputted wrong and it wasn't saved properly. You didn't have the ballistic calculation set or you still had table set. So we work through all this stuff with you guys and try to get you guys sorted as fast as possible.
One thing I can say with that's perfect. There's a gentleman, just bear with me, get his name, Steve Whitaker, who was messaging. He's a recent owner with regards to the DNT units, the Zulus, but he's not new to night vision. And he sent me a message a few weeks since, or a week or so since, and said, look, I've done everything as I should. I've done the transition from the Arken app, and I've now gone to the DNT thing, but I'm really struggling. And what he was struggling with was with regards to elevation shooting. So if he's shooting things up in the trees, so it is mainly, let's say, like squirrels and things like that, and he was ranging, but he wasn't getting the rangefinder change the ballistic marking for him to have an aiming point. So he wasn't getting any holdover or anything like that at all. And he thought he'd gone through everything, checked everything in settings, sent me screen settings. I looked at things. Everything seemed to be right. So I got in touch with Ryan Lee, messaged him, and he said, I'm not sure, we'll talk through it, work things out. And then Steve got in touch with a couple of guys US side, and they talked him through things. And one of the things that they said to him, all the usual things like take the app back off again, redo the firmware, put the app back on, put your data, as you do, usual thing, power it off. But one thing that they said, and obviously they'd seen it before, and it's that thing that you've just said, transfer your ballistic data over via Wi-Fi. And he'd been doing it before, trying to do it before with Bluetooth. As soon as he did that, he's great, he's got it. So when he's sort of shooting uphill now, he gets his cross, comes on, gives him right data, and he's off and away. So yeah, we're seeing positive things from this side, from what information you're giving out.
Right. And so that Steve, the guy he talked to in the US was me. And I worked with him as much as I could. What I try to do is for any customer that I touch base with, if I can't figure it out, I'll talk to the team. But I always have a unit in front of me. So what I do is I got all of his information.
Yep.
His scope height, his pellet weight, his feet per second, and I put it in my scope. And on my side, it was showing. So I know that it wasn't my device. So then we narrowed that down. It was working and inclination was working. But again, I did it via Wi-Fi. Yep. So once we sorted out all the back and forth and I got all the information, I forwarded that to him. I said, back everything out. I want you to do a factory reset, get that table data out of your scope. Yep. And then once the table data is out, only transfer through Wi-Fi and let's see if that works. As soon as that happened, he put his data in. He messaged me that night. He goes, oh, it's raining. I can't get outside, but it seems like it's working. Touched base with me the last couple of days. Showed me a video actually this morning. Silo to show. He was at an extreme angle, like 45, 50 degrees. And now it's holding as it should.
It's Dave, I must say, you couldn't have picked two better people to have on from representing USA and UK because we've got that joint customer that we've both been trying to deal with. And it's sorted. So big thumbs up, Matthew. Nice one.
Thanks. The funny thing is, all three of us were dealing with Steve. So we're all kind of involved in that. I have a slight problem with dealing with airgun guys because obviously, although I do shoot in sheds, and I did take it to take my 3-12, put it on the air rifle, took it to one of the riding schools that I do pest control in, and I was trying it out, and it seemed to be working fine for me, but my thing is because I'm a powder shooter, I'm not an airgun shooter predominantly, we don't shoot at 45 degrees angles, we don't shoot at like 90 degrees angles, we shoot flat as possible, might shoot uphill, but even then our elevations and our drops and our elevation and windage doesn't change, it's all calculable in regards to shooting flat, so it's very, very difficult for me to when you're giving somebody advice, you have to relate to them. You have to have a bit of experience of what they're experiencing. And the one thing that he had said to me was that he had factory reset his scope a couple of times and couldn't quite get why it wasn't working, and then he was just basically going to send it back. Well, what I tried to explain to him is that factory reset, you might need to do that twice on any digital device. We're not talking just about the Zulus. We're not talking about we're talking about computers. I used to fix computers back in the day. It wouldn't be the first time that I had to reformat a computer twice, because when you're transferring data from one device to another device, whether that's a disk or whether it's a USB stick or whether it's going from your phone to a camera product or whatever, if there is any lossage in that data, any of the packets can become corrupt or whatever, you will always struggle to get every piece of that bit of equipment to work. So factory reset always helps. Now, on the original 520 that I was sent by Arken, I did the initial firmware update, and what had happened was it lost zero completely. It didn't just wipe all the data. The data was still there, but it just didn't seem to want to hold zero. After every time I turned it on and turned it off, for some reason it would reset back to whatever it was originally. So it was practically factory resetting my zero every time I turned it back on. I factory reset the scope. Still got the 520. It's sitting on 243 today. And I factory reset the scope, re-zeroed it, not a problem. And that's one thing about the Zulus is it has got to be the easiest. I mean, the most easiest scope to zero. That digital scope that I've ever used. I mean, there's no complications. There's no fiddly settings. There's nothing. Once you know where the button there is and how everything works, you can do it you can do it either in the app or you can do it on the scope. But you pretty much it's so easy. One of the big problems I found that users are coming towards to me with is graininess in regards to their image. They're expecting a heck of a lot when they're at that full magnification from what is technically a digital zoom. Now, the big thing recently is the 3 to 12. People are comparing the 3 to 12 10 times zoom with, or even the 7 times zoom to the 520 when it at the same optical zoom. The problem is that's not how the technology is set up. It's set up to go through the stages. So your zoom quality, your picture quality will be technically the same at 10 times as what on the 3 to 12 is what it will be at 17.5 times on the 5 to 20. And people are not really fully understanding how that works. And it's actually not the fault with the devices. It is like with your phone or your camera. It's just a camera device, a camera digital zoom. The further you go out, the closer you get to your maximum zoom, the more grainy and the more picture you will lose to clarity. And that's only because of the processing power of the chip that's inside it. But that is a big thing. I don't know if you guys have come across that.
Exactly that. I'll just very quickly. People comparing it, as you said, and not realizing that if they compare it times 10 magnification on both of them, which is about the closest that you'll get, the 3 to 12s at the end of its digital magnification, whereas the 5 to 20s still got plenty of work left. So that way you're seeing them doing it at like the 10 times, that's where they're getting the degradation of the image and not realizing how simple and why it is.
Yeah, and see, we just received the 3 to 12s here, so guys are just starting to see that. They were able to see that, and they're actually that same question that you just posted, talked about. They asked, so why is I have them side by side, 3 to 12 and the 520 at 10 times. It doesn't match the 5 times, on the 5 times model, and it is because the base magnification is different. The digital zooming is completely different. So, like Pete said, it was at the end of the spectrum for the 3 to 12, while the 10 times on the 5 to 20 still has plenty of digital zoom to be enhanced. The other thing when you lose clarity on digital zoom is some guys, at least here in the US, don't know that the IR torch is adjustable. So you can, all these digital night stuff like light. They like light. That's how they produce a good image. So if you're not at a spot beam, because it could go to spot and flood, and if you're really tight on that spot, you're losing that field of view, so you can't see it. If you're not far, 100 yards in, you can dial that IR to take up your whole screen and then match it with the brightness to try to get as best clarity as possible.
Yeah, I've also seen the opposite side as well, where people have had it on really high power and extremely tight beam, but then left it on wide. So then they're wondering why on earth I've got an extremely burnt out image in the center, but the outside of it is dark. Well, increase your magnification, maybe for starters. Open up the beam and do it that way, so that you get the extremes of it as well.
Exactly, and I think that's coming down back to customer expectations and the information they're given in regards to the retailers that are sending out. We need to, and maybe that is one thing that we might need to relate back to slightly on the when we're actually selling the items. Well, I don't sell any items, but when we're talking to customers in the future on what the expectations are over what the reality is in regards to things, because as I said, that clarity issue, the different magnifications, is something that's easily picked up. And it's very easy for me to, as a reviewer, not understanding the technology, would put two side by side and go, right, okay, this one's at 5 times, this one's at 5 times. Why is there a difference in clarity? Or this one's at 10 times, this one's at 10 times. Why is there a clear difference in clarity? Well, they don't realize that the 3 to 12 was actually designed for closer range stuff. So basically, it's designed to be run between that 3 times mag and the 7.5 times mag, and that's your optimum clarity. If you go further up further on from there, you are going to start losing clarity at that point. Where likewise with the 5 to 20, its optimum clarity will always be at 5 times, but it will start deteriorating when you get to the 15 and the 17.5 times. You will get your full vision, you'll get still good vision at 12 times. I think it's 12.5 times it runs up in increments, I can't remember. But then when you get to your 15 and your 17.5 times, that's when you're going to start losing that graininess. And you guys that are running it on full power the whole time, it's quite difficult. The one thing I do want to speak about is that I'm really glad that DNT have decided to put the 3 to 12 with the VCL now and not with the LED. This takes away this massive problem that people, and I'm going to say some of the retailers that you mentioned, Pete, earlier, were very eager, very quick to put on forums to say, we are now not going to sell the 3 to 12 because we seem to be having issues with clarity on these scopes. Well, I'm going to be, that was bull. I did bring a video out for it. I did say this is not the problem with the scope. This is something that I addressed very, very early on with Arken. Now DNT have decided to take it on board. I addressed this immediately. And even you and I came into a big discussion about this and we were kind of butting heads over it, was the fact that the LED is no good above 50 yards. It starts losing clarity around 25 to 30 yards, and then becomes fogged out at, especially in different conditions. And that's only in outdoor use. And this is one thing that I always try and highlight. If you're an air gunner shooting 25 yards maximum or 30 yards maximum, indoors, your clarity, an LED is fine. You've got no atmospheric variations. You've got no rain. You've got none of the big problems that you find when you're shooting outdoors. The air gunners that were shooting rabbits outside were like, well, wait a minute, I'm an air gunner. I can get past 25 yards with this. How are you getting clear vision with the 3 to 12 as well? Because I took my V cell off my 520 and stuck it onto the and I did a video on it. This is a kind of communication that people needs to go. It's not a problem with the scopes. It might just be a problem with the individual parts of the scope that allow you to kind of adjust and to modify so that you can get your vision and get all these things. So likewise, brightness setting and And using even as simple as your zooms, and not your zooms, you're focusing. Guys are just not focusing their scopes properly. They're using enhanced color when they shouldn't be using enhanced color. That sort of thing is understanding the tech and actually playing with the tech, because that's how we learn. We learn by playing the tech.
I think people forget when they're using the IR and the night vision, when they're zooming in, because it's digital. What they're looking at is just a smaller and smaller area of that image itself, and what they're looking at there is just less and less light. The light's still there, but it's on the outside of what you've zoomed in at. So you're just looking at less light. And I think people sort of think, well, why isn't it still remaining that bright image? You're just looking at a smaller and smaller area, so it's gonna look darker.
Right. So I'm very conscious of the time, and you guys have got a whole different life rather than sitting talking to me. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to talk amongst yourselves in regards to the TNC, the new technology that's coming out that is not fully released in the UK, but has got items here. What has been released, and yeah, I see you've got one in front of you as well, Matthew. You want to talk a little bit, Matthew, if you can talk about what the features are, where you find maybe some of the complications and issues are going to be, where one person, where all these things are going to benefit the shooter, and how everything is going to work out in the future in regards to the TNC. We cannot even comment on it because I've never even touched one. And I've been one of I've looked at the specs, I've been sent me all sorts of information on it. And without having hands on, I can't really reveal it. So I will leave this little section to you guys to discuss the TNC, what you think the pros and cons are going to be, and tell me a little bit the technology and the features that are on it.
Okay, so like what's good about this scope is it's got, like we discussed before, it has both built into it. What you're going to have to understand is that it's going to have your digital on top and then your thermal on the bottom right here. Some guys in the US are already saying, oh, I can't get my image clear. Well, because you have two different focuses. This is going to focus your digital, and then this is going to focus your thermal. They're both going to be separate. Another thing that you're going to have to understand is that because they are essentially two scopes, you need to sight them both in separately. But with the one-shot zero, you're going to still be able to freeze your image, and then as soon as you're done with the digital, you can swap straight to the thermal image and be able to dial that into the spot that you just shot at your desired zeroing distance. The thing that some guys might have issues with is the button layout is slightly different than the Zulus, and the functions are slightly different. One of the main things that guys might have a little difficult is now that to save your zeroing profile, it's a long press right instead of a long press left with the Zulus, which is going to take some getting used to if you're running both products, but not a big deal. It's still going to have the laser rangefinder, and it's still going to have the built-in IR. Other than that, it's going to be a great product. I use it, and like I said, I'm in the U.S. My state, the laws are a little bit more strict than other states in the U.S., and I just picked up air gunning, so I can actually still enjoy the hobby of shooting and pesting and all that kind of stuff. Like you guys said earlier, I used to just go out with a thermal monocular, scan, and then get on it with the night vision. The problem with that is where I shoot is there's bushes and trees, and if you're sitting there looking for your quarry or your target and it hops in and out of the bush, when you're on it with the thermal, you think you got a shot. You get on your night vision, and if you don't see eyes or a body moving, you can't take your shot. With the Thermite, I run both the TNC. I run both images at once. And because it's such a quick transition by hitting this button right here to go back and forth and swap the images, you can run your thermal on the main screen and then at an instant swap them. So when it pops in the bush, I go back to the thermal. I follow the mice or the rats coming in and out of the bush, and I still have the picture in the top left of the digital. So I can see if I have a clear shot. And it's just cut my time down substantially because I can follow it and track it without having to stop, go on the thermal, go, come down. Once I see it, I can get on it and follow it as fast as I can. The problems, I don't see many problems with this one right now. It's just because it's going to be such a new product. It's going to just be user just learning how to input all the data, zero it, and get everything zeroed and figure it out from there. One thing to take note of is when you're zeroing this or putting in your ballistic data for this, you're going to be doing the measurement from the middle lens of the digital to where it's mounted. So you're going to get a much higher number than you would with just the Zulus. But once that's inputted in the ballistic and it's been set into the scope, once you swap back and forth, the scope will do the math for your holdovers on both images. So you don't have to worry about that. Just as long as you have a good zero and a measurement on the digital side and your scope from the center bore to the center of your objective lens on the digital. And that's if anybody has any questions about that, I think it's going to be a great unit for anybody that can't decide if they want a thermal or a night vision, or if somebody just wants to be able to track it. And if you are out and hunting or pesting in different environments, the thermal is going to be able to spot things that are hidden or behind brush. Sometimes you have a rolling hill that you can't see it with the night vision because now the hill's in front of you and your IR is giving you a little bit bounce back and it whites out your screen a little bit because the sensor is trying to read it. When it's wide out there, you can see it. But when you're going back and forth into bushes and stuff like that, having both images on one unit, you're going to be able to stay on target and be able to take your shot if you need to.
Yeah, I think what about not taking your eye off to use the monocular, you're still using the same eye to look through the screen, so you're not taking your eye off anything. You're not going to lose the quarry between that few seconds it takes you to move from the monocular back to your rifle scope. One of the little tweaks that they'd put on it, on the two reticles, you can now move the picture-in-picture slightly so that you can have your reticles line up, whereas before there was seemed to be a little bit of a miss sort of alignment in the pre-retail one. I mean, I don't just sell the units for sort of pest control either. I deal with a lot of other industries. So I deal with facilities management where they're looking at overheating of technologies and things. I deal with ecologists that are sort of doing wildlife management and surveys. So one of the things that I asked for, which I think some you may not have noticed it, but I asked for it on the Zulus. Might be a simple thing, but to have a feature where you've got no reticle at all. So that's what's been one of the things that's been added into the Arken or into the DNT app across the Zulus and the new one, as far as I know, that you can switch the reticle off. So for people that are doing, for example, over here, bat surveys, wildlife management, where the last thing they want is a reticle over a protected species or whichever else, it makes it another area that this piece of kit can be moved into. So I've got customers that have got nothing to do with shooting industry at all that use the Zulus for wildlife management and observations. So the thermal and the infrared on the new TNC unit will be fantastic because it'll cut down on having such a vast expense of where some of the ecologists are spending £1,000 already on some night vision cameras to watch bats, and then they've got another £1,000 laid out on a monocular of some description. That this combination, certainly with regards the thermal side of stuff on the unit being the 3 to 12, and then the night vision day bit being the 5 to 20, they've got both aspects there where they've got the full wide screen of the 3 to 12 for the thermal, so they're not going to miss anything. But they can also then focus in with the 5 to 20 on the day and night vision. So I just see so much more uses for it. I mean, I deal with search and rescue. I'm at an event later on in the year. It should have been actually this week. For marine search and rescue, I deal with local fire search and rescue, police. It's just so diverse, this piece of kit. I just think it's going to be taking market.
I agree. I was like, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm actually a crew member in the local lifeboat crew, and I've often tried to speak to people in regards to my own crew and my own base that where the technology I use for hunting could be passed on. And one of the features that I did like about the Zulus, and I use it quite often, is the fact that you can go all the way down to your settings function on your menu, where it's the last button on the menu, and then you can knock off your reticle. You can ask it for to have a zero reticle or a normal reticle, and that allows me, as in my ecology side of things, for the rewilding estate that I work on. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of monitoring of feral pigs. They class them as wild boar, but feral pigs are nonetheless. And we're not shooting at the moment. So when I pass over the video footage to the likes of the ecologists and stuff, they don't have it in their head that I am shooting these pigs because I've got them on a crosshair. I'm actually just monitoring on them because it's amazing how much you can imagine people think when you put a crosshair involved in any kind of video footage that you're putting up about when it comes to animals. So I think that is a really cool feature. The one thing I noticed, I'm not sure, and I want to ask you guys this as a question as a guy who's going to be looking and reviewing and dealing with this unit in the future, is there a full crosshair on the thermal side, or is it just the little green cross that I've seen in some of the footage that I've been watching over the TNC?
So it's you could choose which reticle you want. The footage that you've seen from me, I keep it small because I personally don't shoot on the thermal side. It's just a tool to keep on target. But you can match it to be the same exact as any of the reticles available to be able to use in the thermal side. And when you swap it, it'll still take up that whole window.
I just wanted to make that clear because some of the footage that I've seen for the promotional footage for the TNC has only shown that little green crosshair as so I wanted to make sure that when guys before they could expect to have a full crosshair range, not just a little dot. Because I've
Yeah.
got to admit, when the Apex came out from Pulsar, it only had a dot. It really only had a dot. It didn't even have a crosshair. It only had a dot, and that was what you were zeroed in it. It did in future firmwares after it. That have a couple of black reticles, which was very good. I just wondered if I'm glad that not Arken, DNT have went down the line of actually providing full reticles, because sometimes there is a change there, just so people don't get confused over that.
Yeah, so you have
Right.
the full option to be able to put
Oh,
it
that's
on.
brilliant. Right, so we are well past the hour mark. I've kept you guys all time, so we're going to finish up, and pretty much I think we've covered everything. What's your thoughts, each of you, in regards to the night vision world in general, how it's going to go in the future, and where you expect either DNT or other brands to compete in this kind of very, in many ways, saturated market right now? Because as the world, I've found out Tennessee has just, like in America, Tennessee has just opened up night shooting. They hadn't been night shooting in certain counties for a very long time, so they're allowing for coyote shooting and stuff like that in Tennessee. I'm not saying they're allowing night vision, right? Optics in a minute, but they're allowing night shooting. Various other countries are now moving, saying that digital vision is going to be allowed in their countries. Certain countries in Europe had banned it, like they had banned moderators and things like that. And I know some states in America are now changing their policies in regards to recreational night shooting and things like that as well. So where do you think the market is going? Where it's going to be, say, in the next 12 months? And who do you think the big players are going to be?
First off, I don't think Pete's not on the chat right now, just so you know.
I can't see my own camera at the moment. I can hear you both. I can see you both. But I've just got two images of you at the top with me not there at the bottom. So I don't know whether it's a setting that Dave swapped at all.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and I'll talk about it. It's
I haven't swapped. I think here I'm just refreshing at the minute. I don't know. It'll be your connection at your side. Just have a look and see if your video is working. Oh, he's completely gone. No, but carry on anyway. You, Matthew, if you could catch up with that, and I'll join back in the chat.
Back in.
There we go. You're back. You're back.
Okay.
Modern technology. Modern technology.
So where do I see the market going in the U.S.? For the guys in the U.S., I think the Thermite is going to be, once people really know what it can do and its potential, I think it's going to be a great unit for guys that just want to start getting into hunting. It's a 256 sensor, and it's an awesome thermal. It's probably one of the best 256 sensors that I've seen, and it does a great job for what it is. By keeping a 256, that's going to be an introductory price for anybody that wants to get into hunting, whether it's day or night. Because the question's always been, should I buy a thermal or should I buy a night vision? With this TNC, you're going to be able to have both in one unit, and you don't have to make that decision. I think, and then the same thing with the Zulus. The Zulus, there's going to be guys. We've seen it already. Should I sell my Zulus to get the Thermite? And I'm going to say no. I mean, it's your personal preference. We're not going to tell you to buy it. There's some guys that have no use for it at all. They're going to be completely fine using their thermal monocular. And we're not going to force anybody to sell their unit to get this because it's so much better than it. It's not that it's so much better. It's just a different tool. And we want that tool to be right for the right person. It's never going to be forced on anybody that because it's a new product, you have to buy it. And it's the next big thing. I'm really excited about the product as a whole. But if somebody had their Zulus and they're happy, I'm not going to force you to get something else. Nobody can force you because you know how you use your product and you might not need the thermal. The thermal is just going to be a tool added on top of having both images and both stuff like that. And how it's going to go in the U.S. is we just hope to keep up with the customers, take back the feedback that we get from everybody, and move forward with any future products.
Yeah, I know I'll sort of echo the same thing that you said. I've had no end of guys say, when's the unit going to be landing here, Pete? What's it like? Have you used it yet? Yes, I have used it. It's certainly better than the pre-retail unit, the tweaks that they've done. The fact that I don't think this, I mean, the specifications are out there. I mean, I can't remember what size it is, but you'll probably know, Matthew. It's now got an internal hard drive for storage, hasn't it, on the TNC unit, whereas on the other units, it was using a SD card.
Right. And so the reason behind that was we wanted to interface the Wi-Fi connection, which is here, to be able to transfer your data, because there was a little bit of feedback on the old data ports, not the ports, but this is the
Matthew,
new unit.
can you show that again? Sorry. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this is how it's different on the unit. Before, this Wi-Fi cover right here was behind this panel, which this is the DNT version. So the Wi-Fi signal's in here. So we wanted it to be fully exposed to be able to get a better Wi-Fi signal to transfer your videos, have a solid connection for mirroring your device and stuff like that. Also, the ease of being able to plug in your device and be able to take the data off. So not only this will allow you to, this isn't a charging port. This is only a data port. You have this cover, so it's ease of access to be able to run a power pack on it or to be able to transfer your data if you hook directly to a computer. The other thing is that with the DNT, we did change the design on the side of here, so it was easier to take off. There was some issues where the other one was just hard to get off. This one you can grab by the side, it doesn't bite into it, or you also have the grip in the middle. And this was brand new, and I was able to just grab it off. Some guys needed pliers. So the Thermite is going to have a built-in 32 gigabyte hard drive that you can access with a computer to take your stuff off, or via the app while you're connected with Wi-Fi to be able to even preview your data. You don't even have to download it. You can preview it before you download it, or you just download it into your device and then go from there.
One of the beauties about having the inbuilt memory as well is it's going to be the best suited for that unit. One of the issues that I found, I mean, I tend to supply memory cards with the units that are retail here, and I people think they're freebies. They cost me money, obviously, but I don't skimp on the quality of them, and that's one of the things that you see here. Somebody will go out and spend £600 on a Zulus, and then they'll look on such as Amazon or somewhere similar, and they'll spend a fiver on an SD card and think it's going to be the bee's knees and everything else, and then they wonder why they're having issues with regards data transfer for firmware upgrades. Why some of them maybe the videos aren't maybe as good a quality as they expect them to be. So yeah, where somebody will spend £600 and then only want to spend a fiver on a memory card, that beggars belief. So to have the memory built in, I think that's one good thing. The only downside I see with everything that becomes sort of built in, if you get a fault with it, the unit's got to go back. Whereas if it was just a memory card, you could exchange a memory card. But yeah, I think the transition to the internal memory is a great idea.
So, what do you think is, other than DNT, where do you think who the big players in the market are going to be?
Phew, blimey. I think we'll potentially see some new companies coming in. I think that certainly in the UK, where we've seen Pard come in the past, and where Higgs come in, and a few other brands, and certainly now with regards to the DNT side of things, I know on a weekly basis I'll get companies from overseas and say we're the latest new thing. We supply to military, we supply to police, for anything. Right? Okay, we've sort of heard this before, but I do think we'll potentially get some new players come in. But I just see that the DNT thing going from strength to strength.
Matthew, what about the US? And I know it's like heavily, like I'm a subscriber to the other podcasts and other channels in the US, and so I speak to them on a regular basis as well. The guys who run those, and they've got their own vision, and it's quite a saturated market right now. In fact, it got so saturated, some big companies actually came out of the game altogether. And we're kind of expecting that with Pulsar right now. I think they're going to come away from the night vision market and go solely into thermal. If they're going to carry on with that, they're going to do something. We'll see how they go. But what about in the US with you?
So there's so many opportunities in the U.S. to hunt stuff at night. Every state is different. So like you said, the market is pretty saturated. I don't want to ever consider it like competition. Everybody's going to have their own personal preference. So the players that are in the U.S. is still going to be like the ATN. People are going to want the ATN. People are still like the Sight Marks, the Wraith line. And then for the thermal side, you're going to have Rix is really popular right now. And iRay, AGM. That's what's in the U.S. right now. And like I said, we don't want to compete with these people. We just want to give our customers the best product from us.
So, last but not least, well, I'm having a little take on that actually. Well, no last role at least, but my little take on that, what is going to dictate the night vision market and the market in general, especially as we in the UK rely on imports a lot. We rely on stuff from China, stuff from the US, stuff from the Ukraine or Belarus or wherever it's all coming from. As the political state of the world at the moment, and how everybody's in conflict and who's allowed to trade with who and who's not allowed to trade, and that's where I see our market in the UK is going to be dictated to, and it's very volatile at the moment. Even at the moment, we've got some civil unrest going on in England and Wales in regards to our own personal politics, never mind the world politics. So generally, I am hoping that DNT is going to expand on what we feed back to them on a weekly and almost daily basis between the three of us and the others involved, because there is not just us. It's starting to become actually a more of a community between the users and the experts. And that's one of the things that's refreshing with DNT, is that we find that they're easier to talk to. They're a lot more honest about the product. And honesty and transparency is one of the things that we've lacked in the night vision world in regards to everything. Genuinely, if we go back to what I was saying about the torch wars many years ago, many of these products were the exact same product getting sold at two different ends of the price market, and they weren't offering anything different between them. I think my mic's just gone.
No,
Can
you're
everybody
all
still hear me?
right. No, it's all right. But with regards to like the night here, we've seen that many brands sort of come and go. Before Pard was Pard, I'd had a few units from them testing and reviewing. And then we had a well-known gentleman here, David, that I'll not mention names or businesses, that said that he'd actually invented the Pard 007 under his own name. And you think, where are people coming from? You know, technology and
I went through
phenomenal. Say that again, Dave.
My microphone, I'm going to have to change my microphone, but I had a little bit of period of time where I kind of had that, I had a bit of association with that gentleman. You see, when I saw him, we went into that kind of moment in time, because it wasn't just part he invented, it was various other items in the hunting community that he seemed to invent. So, from my friends. Try not to associate with that anymore. I think there's lawsuits involved and things like that as well.
Matthew, have you seen much with regards the restrictions in trading with USA and such as China and Japan and things? Because I think Infrared had an issue recently with regards to that side of stuff. Have you seen any restrictions yourself? Think you might.
I don't know any of that stuff. I'm device specialist and I don't know that part of import and how any of that works. If I knew, I'd tell you, but I don't, honestly.
No problem. No.
Right, gentlemen, I don't know. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I've had to switch microphone. I will wrap this up, actually. It's been an absolute interesting conversation. We are coming up to the hour and a half mark, right? Hour and 25 minutes. So you guys are probably we could sit here and talk all day, and hopefully we do this again, because it'd be really good for you guys to come on board again. And maybe my technical issues won't be so great where things are falling out my ears and microphones are not dying or anything like that.
What you want to do, mark that microphone up as use this, because that's the best it sounded in this last hour and a half.
Well, actually, I just jumped onto my laptop microphone because I think the battery's gone on my DJI mic. So, expensive DJI mic built in again. There we go. I said it before in regards to the IR torches. If something works, why try fix it? So I think we got to all the way through everything.
I don't have to use Google Translate to try and work out what you're saying.
Oh, that's mean. But yeah, I said that to Matt before we started. Maybe between our different accents, we could have probably people tried to. I'm pretty well spoken when it comes to Scottish. There's worse than I am. Hope you guys have had a really good experience on today's podcast. We've got a lot of information over the last hour and a half. It's been eye-opening. Do you know, on a daily basis, I spend time dealing with individuals in regards to these products, and I usually just give my point of view, and I don't really get much feedback from other people. So it's been good to get feedback from you guys who have got hands-on experience with the products, as well as being involved in fixing some of the problems as well, and developing the community. And as I said, I think DNT is turned into more, between users and experts, has been turned into more of a community effort than just a product coming to market and like it or lump it, we'll fix it if you come to us, but that's it. You know, the customer service within is more global now, instead of actually just one point of contact, which I think is fantastic. Is there anything you guys want to say before we finish off in regards to any of the products, Matthew or Pete?
Just
Go
go on, Matthew, first, mate.
So it's not more of like the products and stuff. I just want to say that the customer's input is really, really big for DNT. And as long as you guys keep up with your questions and your input and helping us make a better product, that's going to make it better for all of us. And I just want that to be known that we'll always be there to help. And I'm always going to try to have a presence, whether it's in the US or the UK groups, that if someone needs help, if it's not me, it's going to be someone that's going to try to get you guys sorted, no matter your issue.
I mean, look at this for a perfect example. We've got 3 countries uniting together on one product here to try and solve issues, as well as the team that's over, with Bin, Solange, everybody, Ryan, and all the rest of it. So I think that's unprecedented. I don't think I've seen that before with a product where, in a quick chat, we're from one side of the globe to the other trying to resolve an issue. I think that's fabulous. One of the things that we're going to try and do in the Facebook group that we've got, the DNT Optics UK, the social media one, is try and do like a live question and answer type thing. So if you want to try and join us on that at some point at a acceptable time to you, where we'll run it as a live broadcast on Facebook, and people can ask us, this is what an issue that we've got, maybe pre-send messages through, and we can maybe then do a live demo and say, well, look, this is the button that you press, like you just said, it's a long press on this, or it's a short one on that, and do like a live thing instead of just continually copy and paste the same answers. But yeah, I just look forward to going forward with it.
Yeah, likewise. I've been moving towards more of these more informative podcasts, as well as my YouTube channel. And I have thought about, in fact, it was my daughter's idea, my 10-year-old daughter, who is a genius, came out with the idea that I should start doing more live events where I actually talk about the products and allow people to real time to ask me questions on the products, which is something that we need to move forward with. I think genuinely it's great for you guys to be on board today. Matthew, I am so sorry. I very humbly apologise for the 1.5 hours notice. Richard bailed out of me in the last minute, and I was like, okay, if you want to come on board, instead of just Pete and I talking about it, let's go for it. And you were like, yeah, I'm all up for that, which is absolutely fantastic. Pete, it has been a pleasure again talking with you. We speak on and off over the years. Over many different issues, from torches to night vision. So most of the time we butt heads, which is always good. And to be fair, having button heads with people is part of the solution to the problems. You can have a very mature conversation, but still disagree with someone. And with that kind of communication, that's how problems get fixed. If you're very focused on, and I find this with a lot of reviewers, which hopefully I don't fall into this category. Yes, this is good, and forget about the bad points. Don't address the bad points and become very militant over the fact that, well, that's just your problem. That's not the product's problem. The only way to fix the problem and to make it perfect is to actually investigate and address the problems as they arrive. And I think DNT is doing that. I think they are allowing for us to have a format to be able to talk to them on a daily basis, even if it is just people voicing their opinion to us and us going to DNT and saying, what's happening here? I think this is where the big solution in the products. Thank you so much for the both of you for attending today's podcast, and I am much appreciated for everybody.
Not a problem. Thank you for the invite.
Loved it. Great pleasure to chat with you, Matthew. Nice one.
You guys
Cheers,
as well.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Glad you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We had a really good chat, about an hour and a half long chat about DNT Optics. I think we covered a lot of ground on that. And if there is anything that we have missed, can you put it in the comments below? We are going to start doing something regular in regards to this, do some live events in regards to answering your questions real time with things in front of us. I am looking forward to the TNC optic coming out, because that is going to be an absolute game changer. I really want to do a test and review on that and see what it's like for deer stalking and whatever. I hope for the best that you like and subscribe and you enjoyed this, because there's going to be more and more in the future. Big apologies again for the quality of my side of the stream, down to my internet connection here in the summer house. We will sort that out from the next interview that I do. I'm hoping to do more of these. It's really good that the guys' their connections were very good, and we could understand and hear everything what they say, because in the end it's more important what they say than what I say, because to be honest, you listen to me every week. These guys are in the business, they're dealing with it, and they're air gunners other than me, who mainly, as you heard through the interview, is a powder shooter. So like and subscribe, happy hunting, stay safe, and I'll catch you next week.